Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're taking a deep dive into some of the materials you sent in
Oh, cool.
about social media marketing, all for companies.
Awesome.
So it looks like we've got a really good mix here, articles, some YouTube videos
Right?
from marketing agencies and experts, so it should be a pretty interesting exploration.
Yeah, exciting time to be in social media marketing.
It really is, and I think,
Yeah.
the goal here is to really help everyone listening understand what are the best practices
Absolutely.
for social media marketing, whether
Mhm.
they've got an established business or they're just starting out.
For sure.
We want to make sure that everyone listening can
Yeah.
take away some really good insights.
I think you picked some really great materials here, too.
Yeah, one of the videos, social media marketing, Salda Studi in 4-minute and Dorsch-Hoff had a stat that kind of blew my mind a little bit.
Oh, really?
80% of Gen Z and millennials are spending at least 3 hours a day
Wow.
on their smartphones.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of time, yeah.
I mean, it's no surprise that social media is like the place to be for businesses.
Yeah. I mean, it's not even a question anymore of if companies should be on social media.
Right.
It's how to best use it.
Yeah, how to actually leverage it.
So, it seems like all these sources agree that social media can achieve a lot of different things for businesses, like building brand awareness, customer acquisition, sales recruitment, social media marketing for Unternehmen, Agentur, erklärt DCAG, even mentioned sharing company values and building connections with the audience.
That's super important. It's not just about
Right.
blasting your message. It's about fostering that sense of community.
Yeah, building relationships.
Exactly.
But, it's probably not the best strategy to try to do everything at once, is it?
You're absolutely right. Social media marketing for Unternehmen Agentur erklärt, DCAG, and social media marketing for insider tips both stress the importance of picking like 2 or 3 key objectives
Oh, interesting.
and really focusing your energy there.
Okay, so why is that so important?
Well, think of it this way. If you're spreading your resources too thin across like every platform and every objective,
Yeah.
your message gets diluted and ultimately you just achieve less. So it's about quality over quantity.
Makes sense.
So you want to really hone in on those key objectives
Right.
and have more impact.
Now, where do we even begin with that? I mean,
That's the question, right?
social media marketing for Unternehmen, insider tips, had this interesting example. It was a food company.
Yeah.
And they were saying that, trying to target everyone on social media just makes you get lost in the crowd
Mm-hmm. Right.
because everyone's competing for the same eyeball.
Food is universally relevant,
Right,
but you need more than that to stand out.
right.
So this is where defining your target audience is super important.
Yeah, how do we figure that out? Who is our target audience, really? Beyond just, basic demographics.
Right, it's more nuanced than that.
Yeah.
Social media marketing for Unternehmen Agentur erklärt, DCAG, goes into this. They suggest considering your audience's values, their interests, even the problems that they have that your product or service can solve.
Oh, so their pain points.
Exactly.
Okay, so understanding those deeper aspects, that's really what helps tailor your message to resonate with them.
Right. It's about connecting on a deeper level.
It seems like figuring out the right audience is more important than just reaching the biggest audience possible, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
How does all of this affect which platforms we should be using?
Yeah. It can feel overwhelming, for sure. Social media marketing for Unternehmen Agentur erklärt, DCAG, called it a jungle, which I think is a pretty apt description.
Yeah, that's a lot of choices.
It is, but you don't have to be everywhere.
Okay, so how do we narrow it down?
Both of the sources we just talked about, they both emphasize that you want to pick the platforms where your target audience is spending their time. And that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You want to be where they are.
So if I'm selling something really visual, Instagram, Pinterest, maybe those are good choices.
Exactly. Those are very visual platforms.
But if I'm, B2B,
Uh-huh.
maybe LinkedIn and Twitter are more effective.
Exactly. LinkedIn is really geared towards professionals and networking, so it's perfect for that.
Got it. Okay, so we've got our goals. We're starting to figure out who our target audiences are and what platforms we should be on.
It's all coming together.
Now, what about the content itself?
Yes, the heart of social media.
There's a quote that really stood out to me from both social media marketing for Unternehmen Agentur erklärt, DCAG, and social media marketing for Unternehmen's insider tips.
Ooh.
They said, the worst content is the content never created.
So true.
What's the thinking behind that?
I think a lot of people get caught up in wanting things to be perfect, and they end up delaying posting anything at all.
Oh, yeah. Fear of putting yourself out there.
But the truth is, consistency is key.
So it's better to just start creating and sharing.
Yes, exactly. Even if it's not perfect at first.
Than to wait for this, like, elusive, perfect post that never comes.
It might never come, yeah.
So to everyone listening out there, if you're feeling intimidated about, putting yourself out there, just remember, you are the expert in what you do.
Exactly.
Your product or service and, your unique perspective, that's what's going to resonate with people.
And all of our sources highlight video content as being super powerful.
Oh, interesting.
It looks like algorithms across all platforms are really favoring video.
Wow.
It's a great way to connect with your audience.
I did see in social media marketing for Unternehmen, insider tips, they actually gave a specific example of a company called Lockert that attributed like 80% of their sales to social media. And it was specifically because of their behind-the-scenes content.
It's really compelling content.
So it's not just about, creating these really polished ads.
Right.
It's about showing the human side of things.
Yeah. Giving your audience a glimpse behind the curtain.
Why do you think that's so effective?
I think people connect with people, right? You see the faces, you see the process, and it builds trust.
It feels more authentic.
Exactly.
I really like that. Oh, and they also had another great tip in social media marketing for Unternehmen, insider tips about repurposing video content.
Oh, that's a good one.
They were saying, you shoot your video horizontally, but then you can edit it for vertical formats like TikTok and Instagram stories, and then even extract the audio for a podcast.
That's a great way to maximize your efforts.
So it's working smarter, not harder.
Exactly. You're reaching different audiences on different platforms with the same core content.
That's a great idea. Okay, so we're feeling less scared about creating content.
That's it.
We're starting to figure out where to post it, but what actually works? Like, what kind of content do people actually want to see?
That's where showcasing the human side of your business really comes in. Social media marketing for Unternehmen, Argentur, Acklert, DCAG, and social media marketing for Unternehmen. Insider tips. They both talked about this. Behind-the-scenes content. Giving your audience a peek into your company culture, your processes, introduce your team.
So it's about authenticity.
Authenticity, making genuine connections.
Right.
People are bombarded with marketing messages all day long.
I know, I feel it.
Right. So you have to be real. You have to be relatable.
Yeah, to stand out.
Exactly. It's about building trust, not just pushing sales.
That makes a lot of sense. But, creating great content, it's only half the battle, isn't it?
It's true. You have to know if it's actually working.
Right.
Which is where analytics come in.
Yeah. And social media marketing for Unternehmen insider tips was really adamant about this.
Yes.
Don't just post and forget it.
Track that performance.
You need to be tracking its performance. Like, are people seeing it? Are they engaging with it? What results are you getting?
Oh, great questions.
Yeah.
And analytics will give you those answers.
Yeah. I was relieved to hear, though, from social media marketing for Unternehmen Agentur Erklärt DCAG that you don't need fancy software right away.
Right.
Even free tools like Google Analytics can give you valuable insights, especially when you're starting out.
Absolutely.
So what should we be tracking?
You can start with the basics. Your reach, impressions, demographics of who's engaging with your content, click-through rates and conversions, like are people making purchases, are you getting leads? All of that.
Don't forget about interactive elements, too, like polls, quizzes, and question and answers.
Those are great because they give you valuable feedback, too.
Yeah, people love those.
And the more data you have, the better you can refine your approach.
But let's be honest, mistakes happen.
They do, even with the best of intentions.
And social media for Unternehmen DCAG actually had a really great list of some common social media marketing mistakes.
Oh, we should definitely get into those.
Yeah, should we dive into those now or save them for part 2?
Let's save them for part 2. I think we've covered a lot of ground.
Sounds good to me. We'll unpack those common mistakes in part 2 of our deep dive into social media marketing.
Can't wait. Welcome back.
So we left off talking about how important it is to analyze whether your content is actually hitting the mark.
Yeah, it's not enough to just create great content. You need to make sure it's actually working for you.
Right. Are people seeing it? Are they engaging with it? That kind of thing.
Exactly. Data is key.
Before we jump into those common social media marketing mistakes from social media for Unternehmen DCAG, I want to circle back to something that social media marketing, so G in Foreman and Dirks touched on, Lead ads. Can you break those down a little bit for me?
Sure. Lead ads are incredibly effective, especially on platforms like Facebook and Instagram.
Okay.
Basically, they allow users to submit their contact info without having to leave the platform.
So like right within the app?
Right there in the app. Imagine scrolling through your feed and you see an ad that catches your eye. Usually, you'd have to click through to a website, right? Fill out a form.
It's a whole process.
Yeah, clunky.
And I feel like a lot of people would just give up halfway through, you know?
Absolutely. Too many steps.
There's so much effort.
But with lead ads, that form pops up right there.
Oh, interesting.
A lot of times your info is pre-filled from your profile, so all you have to do is hit submit.
Wow, that's so much easier.
Super convenient, right?
Yeah, it's a much better user experience.
That's better user experience.
So the user's happy and the business gets more leads.
Exactly. Win-win.
So it makes sense why Meta would be pushing this format.
Keeps people on the platform, right?
He keeps them engaged. Speaking of keeping users on the platform, that same video also mentioned TikTok instant experiences.
Oh, yeah, those are fun.
Can you tell me a little bit more about those?
So basically, they're like mini apps within TikTok. Instead of just seeing a static ad,
Yeah.
users can actually interact with your brand. Take quizzes, games, product demos. You can even have virtual try-ons.
Oh, wow, that's pretty cool.
It's really about bringing your brand to life within that TikTok ecosystem.
And keeping them engaged, right?
Exactly. It's a much more immersive experience.
I can see why brands are excited about that.
Definitely. It's a really creative way to get your message across.
Okay, so now that we've talked about lead ads and TikTok instant experiences, are you ready to tackle those common social media marketing mistakes?
Let's do it. Let's get into it.
Okay, so social media for Unternehmen DCAG had quite a list.
Yeah, they did.
What's the first one?
The first one might seem obvious, but it's important to mention. Not recognizing the opportunities of social media.
You'd think that wouldn't be an issue anymore, but you'd be surprised.
I know, right? But some businesses are still hesitant.
They're missing out.
Big time.
Okay, what's the next mistake?
Lacking a clear social media strategy.
This is a big one. We talked about it earlier, right?
Right.
Figuring out your goals, target audience, what platforms to focus on.
Exactly. Without that roadmap, you're just kind of wandering around aimlessly.
Lost in the jungle.
Exactly.
And without a strategy, it's easy to fall into the next trap. Not allocating sufficient resources.
This is crucial.
Social media for Unternehmen DCAG was very clear about this.
Yeah, they stress that it's an investment.
It's not something you can just do haphazardly, right?
No, it needs time, effort, sometimes even budget.
You can't just expect results without putting in the work.
And you need dedicated personnel too, whether that's a team or an agency.
People who really understand the ins and outs of social media.
For sure. It's a specialized skill set.
Okay, what's the next mistake on the list?
Failing to consider your target audience.
We were just talking about that, right?
Right. You can have the best content in the world, but if it's not relevant to the people you're trying to reach.
It's not going to do anything for you.
Exactly. It's like throwing a party and inviting everyone in the phone book.
I love that analogy.
You might have a lot of people show up, but are they the right people?
Right, the ones who actually care about what you have to offer.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got a strategy, we're investing resources, we know our audience. What's next?
Posting regularly and consistently.
That makes sense. Social media algorithms, they love to see that.
They do. It shows that you're active and engaged.
So how do we stay consistent? I feel like that's a struggle for a lot of people.
Social media for Unternehmen DCAG suggested creating a content calendar.
Oh, that's a great idea.
It helps you plan ahead and stay organized.
It takes the pressure off, right? You're not scrambling to come up with something new every day.
Exactly. But remember, quality over quantity.
Right. It's better to have a few amazing posts than a ton of mediocre ones.
Couldn't agree more.
Which brings us to another big mistake. Not analyzing content performance.
We were just talking about this, right?
We were. You got to track those metrics.
You do. Are people seeing your posts? Are they engaging? Are they clicking through?
And if not, why not?
Exactly. And don't be afraid to experiment.
Oh, yeah. Try new things.
If something isn't working, switch it up. Try a different format, a different time of day.
See what catches people's attention.
Social media is all about testing and refining.
Makes sense.
And this leads us to the final mistake on the list.
Okay, what is it?
Giving up too soon.
Yeah, I can see that happening.
It's easy to get discouraged, especially if you're not seeing immediate results.
Right. But building a strong social media presence, it takes time.
It really does. Social media for Unternehmen DCAG compared it to running a marathon.
Oh, I like that.
You wouldn't expect to run a marathon without training, right?
I wouldn't even try.
Social media is the same way. You need to be in it for the long haul.
Be patient, be consistent.
And most importantly, don't give up.
Great advice. So we've covered a lot of ground in this part of the deep dive.
We have. We talked about lead ads, TikTok instant experiences, and all those common mistakes.
What else do we have in store for our listener in part 3?
You know, we've talked a lot about the practical side of social media marketing.
Mm-hmm. All the things you need to know to actually do it.
Right. But I think in part 3, we need to talk about the bigger picture.
Oh, interesting.
How is social media shaping our world? How are algorithms influencing our behavior?
Those are big questions.
They are. But they're important ones to consider.
I'm intrigued. Let's dive into those deeper questions in part 3 of our deep dive into social media marketing.
I can't wait.
Welcome back. We're wrapping up our deep dive on social media marketing for companies.
We covered a lot, didn't we? Everything from like strategy and target audience.
To like content creation, analytics.
Even common mistakes people make.
But you hinted at something a little bit deeper we need to discuss, and I'm really curious to hear what that is.
Yeah, we've been focusing on the how-to, right?
The nuts and bolts.
Practical stuff.
Yeah, how to actually make it work.
Right. But it's important to step back and think about the big picture.
Okay.
Like, social media isn't just this neutral tool, right?
So what are we talking about here?
It shapes how we see the world,
Okay.
influences our behavior, even affects our well-being.
That's a pretty big statement.
It is, yeah. So let's start with this whole information overload thing.
Oh, yeah, we're all feeling that.
Right. Constant messages, notifications. It's hard to even figure out what's important anymore.
And what's even real.
Right. It's like, what's actually real and what's just trying to sell you something?
Yeah, you really have to be careful these days.
You do. So this is where critical thinking is super important.
Okay.
As social media marketers, we have a responsibility, right? To be truthful, to be transparent. We shouldn't be contributing to all that noise and clutter.
Right. So how do we do that?
It's about providing value, sharing information that's actually helpful, building trust with your audience.
So it's not just about getting likes and followers.
Right. It's bigger than that.
It's about being mindful of the impact your content is having.
Exactly. We're not just pushing products. We're shaping perceptions and influencing behavior.
Wow, I hadn't really thought about it like that before.
It's a powerful realization. And this leads to another important thing, this whole potential for manipulation.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Think about these algorithms, right?
Yeah, they're designed to keep us hooked.
Exactly. But often at the expense of our attention spans and even our well-being.
Oh, yeah, I've definitely fallen down those rabbit holes.
We all have. It's so easy to do. So we have to be aware of how these algorithms work. And as marketers, we shouldn't be taking advantage of that.
Right, so we shouldn't be trying to trick people.
Exactly. We should be using what we know to create content that's genuinely engaging and valuable.
Okay, so not just clickbait headlines.
No, those are the worst.
Just to keep people scrolling.
And we can't forget about the social aspect of social media, right?
Oh, yeah, that's kind of the point, right?
It is. It can be amazing for connecting with people and building communities.
I've made some great friends online.
Me too. But it can also have a dark side, can't it?
Yeah, what do you mean?
Comparison, envy, feeling like you're not good enough.
It's so easy to get caught up in those highlight reels.
It really is. And people forget that everyone's just showing their best selves online.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So this is why authenticity is so important.
Oh, tell me more about that.
We need to be real, show the good and the bad.
So not be afraid to be vulnerable.
Right. Show the human side of your brand.
Okay, so where does this all leave us? I mean, we've explored all these practical things about social media marketing, but now we're uncovering some pretty big questions about its impact too, right?
Yeah, it's a lot to think about, right? I think the key takeaway here is that social media, it's a powerful tool.
We've established that.
It can be used for good, but it can also be used for bad.
It's how we use it, right?
Exactly. It comes down to our choices, our intention.
Our responsibility.
As marketers, we need to be thoughtful about the content we create, the messages we send, the impact we have on people.
So it's not just about achieving those business goals.
Right.
It's about being a good citizen online in this digital world.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
I think this deep dive has been pretty amazing.
It really has.
We started with the basics, but we ended up exploring some really deep questions.
I know, it's more than I expected.
It always is, right?
So for everyone listening out there, we hope this deep dive gave you a solid understanding of social media marketing. Not just the mechanics of it, but the ethical stuff too.
And remember, this is a journey, right?
Always changing.
It is. So experiment, adapt, Stay informed.
Yeah, be willing to learn and grow.
And most importantly, use your platform for good.
That's a great message to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Of course, it was my pleasure.
We hope you learned something new and are inspired to approach social media marketing, with both strategy and heart.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening.